Have you ever studied English for years, but frozen completely when it was time to speak? You know the words, you understand the grammar, you can read, you can write, you can translate in your head. But when someone looks at you and says, "So, tell me about yourself," your mouth won't move, your brain goes blank, your confidence disappears. I lived like this for 10 years. 10 years of studying English. 10 years of perfect exam scores. 10 years of silence. Until one terrible, beautiful day when I failed so badly that I discovered something extraordinary. My brain already knew English. I just hadn't trained it to speak. Let me tell you about the day my English brain woke up, the day I stopped being a silent student and became a speaker, the day I learned that fluency isn't about memory, it's about training.
My name is David. I'm 28 years old, and for 10 years, I was an English student who couldn't speak. I started learning English in school at age 12. Grammar rules, vocabulary lists, reading comprehension, writing essays. I was good at it. Top of my class, high marks on every test. My teacher would say, "David, your English is excellent." But there was one problem. One big, terrible problem. I never spoke. In class, when the teacher asked a question, I stayed silent. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because the words wouldn't come out. My brain would work like this. Teacher asks question in English. I translate it to my language. I think of the answer in my language. I try to translate it back to English. I check the grammar in my head. I search for the right words. And by the time I'm ready to speak, the moment is gone. Someone else has answered. The class has moved on. So I stayed quiet, year after year, studying but never speaking, understanding but never expressing, passing tests but failing conversations. My family would ask, "David, you've studied English for so long. Say something in English." I would panic. My mouth would freeze. My mind would go completely blank. I need more time to prepare, I would say. But the truth was darker than that. I was terrified. Terrified of mistakes. Terrified of sounding stupid. Terrified that after 10 years of study, I still couldn't speak one simple sentence naturally. I tried everything. I memorized more words. I studied more grammar. I read more books. I watched more videos. But nothing changed because I was treating English like a school subject, something to study, something to remember, something to get right. I didn't know that fluency lives somewhere else. Not in memory, but in the brain's ability to react, to move, to express without thinking. I didn't know my brain needed training, not teaching, exercise, not explanation, practice, not perfection. I didn't know that yet, but I was about to learn.
The breaking point came on a Wednesday, the worst day of my life. The day everything fell apart, but also the day everything began. I had applied for a new job, a better position, better salary, better future, and they wanted to interview me. The interview will be in English, the email said. Please be prepared to speak about your experience. I had 1 week to prepare, so I did what I always did. I wrote out my answers. I memorized them, word by word. I practiced in front of the mirror, reading from my paper. My name is David. I have 5 years of experience in marketing. I am a hard worker and a quick learner. I said it 50 times, 100 times, until I could recite it perfectly. Interview day arrived. I put on my best suit. I practiced my memorized sentences one more time. I felt ready. I walked into the office. Clean, modern, professional. A woman smiled at me. "Hello, you must be David. I'm Sarah. Please, have a seat." My heart was already racing, but I smiled, nodded, sat down. She looked at my resume. Then she looked at me, and she asked the question I had prepared for. "So, David, tell me about yourself." This was it, my moment. The sentence I had memorized, the words I had practiced. I opened my mouth and nothing. My brain went completely blank. Every word I had memorized disappeared. Every sentence I had practiced vanished. I sat there, silent, frozen, panicking. Sarah waited, still smiling, patient. "Take your time," she said gently. But time didn't help, because the problem wasn't time. The problem was that my brain was trying to remember instead of trying to speak.
I finally managed to say, "My name is David. I work in the marketing." Wrong grammar, wrong article, wrong everything. Sarah nodded encouragingly. "And what kind of marketing do you do?" Another question, another panic. My brain started translating from my language to English, searching for words, checking grammar, building the sentence slowly, carefully, perfectly. But while I was doing all that work inside my head, Sarah was sitting there, waiting, watching me struggle. Finally, I said, "I do the digital marketing for company." It was painful, broken, slow, nothing like the perfect sentences I had memorized. Sarah asked me 2 more questions. I answered them just as badly, slowly, incorrectly, painfully. After 10 minutes, she said, "Thank you for coming, David. We'll contact you soon."
I knew what that meant. I didn't get the job. I walked out of that office feeling destroyed. Not sad, not disappointed, destroyed. 10 years. 10 years of English classes. 10 years of high marks. 10 years of vocabulary lists and grammar rules. And I couldn't speak for 10 minutes. I went home, sat on my bed, and for the first time in my life, I asked myself the real question. What am I doing wrong? Not what don't I know, but what am I doing wrong? Because I did know English. I could read English news. I could understand English movies. I could write emails in English. But I couldn't speak. There was something missing, something I hadn't learned, something no teacher had ever taught me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the interview in my mind, my frozen mouth, my blank brain, my broken sentences. And then, at 2 a.m., I did something I had never done before. I opened my laptop and I searched. Why can I understand English but not speak? What I found changed everything.
That night, at 2 a.m., sitting in the dark with my laptop glowing, I found an article. The title was, "Why Your Brain Can't Speak English and How to Train It." I started reading, and with every paragraph, something inside me clicked. The article said, "You don't have a speaking problem. You have a training problem. Your brain knows English, but it hasn't been trained to produce English. It's been trained to study English. And those are two completely different things." I sat up straighter. Keep reading. When you try to speak, your brain is doing 5 jobs at once. Translating, searching for words, checking grammar, building sentences, worrying about mistakes. That's why you freeze. Your brain is overworked. But fluent speakers don't do any of that. Their brains react directly in English. They don't translate, they don't check, they just speak, because their brains have been trained. And then came the sentence that changed my life. Fluency is not about what you know. It's about how your brain reacts. And any brain can be trained. I read that sentence 5 times, 10 times, because it was the first time anyone had ever explained my problem correctly. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't lazy. I didn't need more vocabulary. I just needed to train my brain differently. The article explained 6 phases of brain training, 6 ways to reprogram a silent brain into a speaking brain. I decided that night, I will do this, all of it, for 90 days. No excuses, no stopping. If this doesn't work, nothing will. Phase 1. I stopped being a student. The first instruction was strange. Stop saying, "I'm learning English." Start saying, "I'm becoming an English speaker." It seemed too simple, but I tried it. Instead of saying, "I need to learn more English," I started saying, "I'm becoming someone who speaks English." And something shifted, small but real. When I said learning,
my brain stayed in school mode, waiting for a teacher, waiting for perfection, waiting to be ready. But when I said becoming, my brain switched into growth mode. I am changing. I am evolving. I am in process. I also stopped treating English like a test. I deleted my vocabulary lists. I stopped checking my grammar obsessively. I told myself, I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to speak. Even badly, even broken, just speak. That mindset shift was the first crack in the wall. Phase 2. I fed my brain like a baby. The article said, before you can speak, your brain needs input, massive input, like a baby learning their first language. I realized I had spent 10 years reading English and writing English, but I had barely listened to English. So, I started a new rule: 1 hour of pure listening every day. Not background music, not watching with subtitles in my language, pure English, focused, intentional. I found simple English podcasts, slow English stories, clear English conversations, and I listened with my eyes closed, just listening. At first, it felt boring. I wanted to do something productive, but I stayed with it. And after 2 weeks, something magical started happening. I began hearing patterns, sentence structures, natural rhythm, the way native speakers connected words. My brain wasn't translating anymore. It was absorbing, like a sponge. I would listen to the same story 3 times, and each time I understood more. Not because I was smarter, but because my brain was getting trained. Phase 3. I connected words to feelings. The third phase was about vocabulary, but not memorizing vocabulary, feeling vocabulary. The article said, your brain doesn't remember words, it remembers emotions. So I tried something new. Instead of memorizing nervous equals worried, I recalled a moment when I felt nervous. The interview, my frozen mouth, my racing heart. And I said out loud, I felt so nervous that day. My hands were shaking. I couldn't think clearly. I said it with emotion, with memory, with real feeling. And guess what? I never forgot that word again. Because it wasn't just a word anymore. It was part of my story. I did this with every new word: frustrated, excited, exhausted, proud, disappointed. Each word became a memory. Each memory became permanent. Phase 4. I trained my mouth like an athlete. This phase was physical, literally physical. The article said, your mouth has been trained for your native language. The muscles, the tongue, the jaw, they're used to different movements. You need to train them for English sounds. So, I started doing what felt crazy at first. Mouth exercises. I would listen to a sentence, pause, then repeat it exactly. Same speed, same rhythm, same tone. I'm going to the store.
I'm going to the store. I'm going to the store. Not just saying the words, copying the movement, the flow, the music. I also practiced tongue twisters. I spoke in front of the mirror. I recorded my voice and compared it to native speakers. My mouth started feeling different, stronger, more confident, like an athlete's muscle getting trained. And slowly, speaking stopped feeling awkward. It started feeling natural. Phase 5. I started thinking in English. This was the breakthrough phase, the phase that changed everything. The article said, "Stop translating, start reacting." So, I created a new habit. Throughout the day, I would narrate my life in simple English, in my mind. I'm waking up. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm making coffee. I feel tired. It's a beautiful day. I need to finish my work. Just simple sentences, real time, real life. At first, my brain resisted. It wanted to think in my native language, but I kept pushing. Morning, afternoon, evening, narrating, reacting, thinking. And after 3 weeks, something incredible happened. I dropped my phone, and before I could stop myself, I thought, "Oh no!" Not in my language, in English. It was automatic. It was natural. It was fluent. I almost cried, because that was the first time my brain reacted in English without trying. That's when I knew my English brain was waking up. Phase 6. I became my own teacher. The final phase was about confidence, building belief, seeing myself as a speaker. Every morning, I would stand in front of my mirror and I would speak to myself. "Good morning, David. How do you feel today?" "I feel good. I'm proud of myself. I'm growing every day. I'm becoming someone who speaks English naturally." At first, it felt weird, talking to myself in English in the mirror. But slowly, I started feeling something powerful. I believed in my voice. I wasn't waiting for someone else to validate me. I was validating myself. I practiced conversations with my reflection. I described my day. I expressed my emotions. I told stories. And every time I spoke, I felt stronger, more real, more confident. After 90 days of this training, something happened that I'll never forget.
3 months after my failed interview, 3 months after I started training my brain, I got a message. It was from Sarah, the interviewer from that terrible day. "Hi, David. We have another position available. Would you be interested in interviewing again?" My first reaction, panic. The memory of that frozen moment came rushing back. But then I stopped, breathed, and thought, "I'm not that David anymore." I replied, "Yes, I'd love to." This time, I didn't memorize anything. I didn't write scripts. I didn't practice in front of a mirror with a paper. Instead, I just lived in English for the 3 days before the interview, thinking in English, narrating my life in English.
feeling confident in English. Interview day arrived. Same office, same Sarah, but a different David. She smiled. "David, it's good to see you again. Please, sit down." I sat, relaxed, present, ready. "So," she said, "tell me about yourself." And this time, the words came. Not perfectly, not like a textbook, but naturally. "I'm David. I work in digital marketing. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I really enjoy helping companies grow their online presence." The words flowed. No translation, no panic, no freezing. She asked, "What made you interested in this position?" And I answered, immediately, confidently. "I saw that your company works with international clients, and I've always wanted to use my English skills in a real business environment. I think this would be a great opportunity for me to grow." Sarah's eyes lit up, not because my English was perfect, but because I was communicating, really communicating. She asked more questions. I answered them all. Some answers were short, some were long, some had small mistakes. But I didn't stop. I didn't panic. I just kept speaking, because my brain was no longer trying to remember English. It was living in English. At the end of the interview, Sarah said something I'll never forget. "David, your English has improved so much. What happened?" I smiled, and I said, "I stopped being a student, and I started being a speaker." 2 days later, I got the email. "Congratulations, we'd like to offer you the position." I read that email 5 times. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I couldn't believe it. 3 months ago, I couldn't speak for 10 minutes. Now, I had just spoken for 30 minutes, confidently, naturally, successfully. I didn't become perfect. I became fluent. And there's a huge difference. And that's how I discovered that my brain already knew English. It just hadn't been trained to speak. Maybe you felt this way too. Maybe you've studied for years, but still can't speak naturally. Maybe you freeze when someone asks you a question. Maybe you understand everything, but can't express anything. I want you to know the problem is not you. The problem is not your intelligence. The problem is not even your English. The problem is that you've been treating English like a school subject, something to study, something to remember, something to get right. But fluency doesn't work that way. Fluency comes from training your brain, not teaching it, training it. Let me share the 6 phases that woke up my English brain, the 6 discoveries that changed everything. Phase 1. Stop being a student. I stopped saying, "I'm learning English." I started saying, "I'm becoming an English speaker." That mindset shift changed how my brain approached English, not as a subject, but as an identity. Phase 2.
Feed your brain like a baby. I gave my brain massive input. 1 hour of focused English listening every day. Not background noise, intentional listening, with closed eyes, with full attention. My brain started absorbing patterns, rhythm, and natural flow. Phase 3. Connect words to feelings. I stopped memorizing vocabulary. I started feeling vocabulary. Every new word became connected to a real emotion, a real memory, a real moment. That's why I never forgot them. Phase 4. Train your mouth like an athlete. I treated my mouth like a muscle. I did speaking exercises, shadow speaking, tongue twisters, mirror practice. My mouth got stronger, more confident, more natural. Phase 5. Start thinking in English. I stopped translating in my head. I started narrating my life in simple English. I'm waking up. I'm making coffee. I feel tired. My brain started reacting in English automatically, without effort, without translation. Phase 6. Become your own teacher. I spoke to myself in the mirror every morning, building confidence, building belief, building my voice. I stopped waiting for the world to validate me. I validated myself. These 6 phases didn't make me perfect. They made me fluent. And fluent doesn't mean perfect. Fluent means natural. Fluent means confident. Fluent means your brain reacts without freezing. You don't need more vocabulary. You don't need more grammar. You don't need more years of study. You need brain training. You need to reprogram how your brain produces English. Say this with me. My brain already knows English. I just need to train it to speak. I'm not a student anymore. I'm becoming an English speaker. I will make mistakes, and that's okay, because mistakes don't stop fluency. Silence stops fluency. Your English brain is sleeping, but it's ready to wake up. All it needs is training, daily training, consistent training, patient training. So tonight, start with phase 1. Stop saying, I'm learning English. Start saying, I'm becoming an English speaker. Tomorrow, start phase 2. Listen to simple English for 15 minutes, with your eyes closed, with full attention. Next week, add phase 3. Connect new words to your emotions, your memories, your life. One phase at a time. One day at a time. One training session at a time. In 90 days, you won't recognize yourself. Not because you'll be perfect, but because you'll be fluent.
Your brain will react in English. Your mouth will move naturally. Your confidence will be real. And one day, someone will ask you, "How did you become so fluent?" And you'll smile, and you'll say, "I stopped studying English, and I started training my brain." Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing that your silent English brain can wake up. I'll see you in the next story, but more importantly, I'll see you in your new, confident, fluent life.